The Honorable Kevin Rudd was the 26th Prime Minister of Australia and a leading voice on global politics and the economy. Kevin Rudd also served as president of the Asia Society Policy Institute, chair of the International Peace Institute, and senior fellow at the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs at John F. Kennedy School of Government and Harvard University. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Ask away.
Do you mind if I ask in Chinese?
You can ask whatever you'd like in whichever language, except Spanish. I don't speak a word. I have reasonable Chinese. I have very bad French. I have passable Swedish. And then I speak English. And then I speak Australian.
我有2个问题。第一个，你为什么想成为外交官？第二个，如果我们想成为大教官，您对我们有什么建议？ So
if you want to become a diplomat, what do you do about it?
Right.
And so thank you. Nicely asked in Chinese. Well, when I was a young person at high school, and all you guys are in high school, is that right?
Yes, sir.
I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I grew up in a country high school in rural Australia. No one had ever heard of the Foreign Service. No one ever heard of the Diplomatic Service. We were a farm community. But I, as a kid, encouraged by my mother, had just a big interest in the world. And so I started reading a whole bunch of books and stumbled on some books dealing with China. So one thing led to another, and when I finished high school, I decided to go off to university. And by the way, no one from our farm community knew what a university was either. And so, but some teachers helped. I applied, I got in, studied Chinese. And then when I graduated, I heard about this thing called the Foreign Service, and to my great surprise, applied to enter and got in. So what's the key to all that for young people growing up, I think, is work out what you're passionate about. And that's easier said than done. It takes a bit of time. Work out what you're interested in and where you think you can make a contribution to your community, your country, and the world. Put those things together, and then you got the beginnings of a mission. In my case, it was kind of working on the problems of the world.
All right, well, my question for you today, Prime Minister Rudd, is how can first-generation college students use our ethnicity and our experiences and our history to become better leaders on an international scale?
Yeah, it's a great question, because the challenge for people wherever they've come from in the world, entering a new society or a new country, is obviously to succeed within the country that they're now living in, but also to become bridges to the country that they've come from.
Of course.
You can do both those things. Like our friend here, Kevin, he's from Harbin in China. For those of you who've never been to Harbin, pack a lot of warm winter clothing when you go, because it's freezing. Well, at least in the winter time. But I hope if you stay in America, Kevin, that in the future you become a bridge between the United States and China. And you have told me that your parents are of Mexican origin.
Yes, sir.
Become a bridge between the United States and Mexico, and certainly between the United States and Jamaica, and between the United States and Scotland. And the bottom line is, most of our countries, like the United States and like in Australia, most of us have come from around the world somewhere apart from our native peoples, in our case, Indigenous Australians. So the answer to your question is, do well in your country where you have chosen to make your home. At the same time, be an effective bridge between your new country and the old country. You do that, you become, as it were, ambassadors to the world. And that's a good thing.
So I've heard you study overseas, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for students that are studying overseas?
So studying overseas, well, depends what age you are. If you're young, like straight out of high school, it can be a little bit lonely. I first went off to Taiwan, actually, to study when I was all of 19, I think. And that's probably older than you guys are now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I found that a little bit lonely, to be quite honest. That's one thing. Number two, however, is if your interest is in studying a language effectively, then make a decision to be in that country for a year or two and to study the language formally. Too many young Americans, and frankly young Australians, think I can understand, quote, Asia by going on a 3-week tour. Well, that's just nonsense. Work out a country, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Japan, whether it's China, whether it's India, spend a year or two there. Wrap your mind around the culture, but most critically, wrap your mind around the language, which requires disciplined study. It is the best vehicle through which to form relationships, the language.